Hi, Cynthia.
Hey Jen, how's it going?
It's going great.
We're talking all about experimentation in marketing, which we're pretty sure we've talked about before. But I was actually inspired because you were talking about your own experiment. I was like, this is a podcast episode. What are we waiting for? Let's just hit record.
Why are we talking when we should be recording? Yes, yes, I agree.
And now we're going to be doing these regularly. So we're going to be sharing about our marketing experience. So why is experimentation important in marketing? To me, it's important because it doesn't matter who you follow, like even following us, we give you tips and things. No one actually has a sworn statement, rule book for how these platforms work. And so it's not like Instagram or Google or any of these platforms, like they keep it pretty close to the chest. And yes, they give us guidance and there's guidelines and stuff, but we don't know what's happening on the other side. Even if you find someone who's like, I know, it's like they don't, because it's very complex. I can say for Google, like Google actually tells us a bunch of things, but then it's actually the SEO experts that go out and do the experiments. And that's where we get the learnings, the true learnings. So to me, I think for a lot of us, we're trying to find like that one thing that's going to tip the bucket. But usually it's multiple things. And when we experiment, we can uncover those multiple things. So I think experimentation is actually a shortcut to finding your success with your marketing. And it's not something to be avoided. It's something to be absolutely embraced and have fun. So to me, that's what experimentation means. And yeah, I'm curious to see what everybody else thinks about your experiment, Jen, because I love what you're doing. I'm like excited to see that.
Yes. So experimentation is hugely important and on an ongoing basis, not just when things are going bad, right?
Right.
And when things are going really well, you could totally stay the course for a bit. Like I get that hesitation because it's like, why fix it if it's not broken?
Right.
However, sometimes, well, like you were saying, platforms change and what could be working totally well suddenly doesn't work.
Right.
And one thing I will say to really, really avoid is when people tell you hacks
Yeah.
that are not part of the sort of best practices of the platform.
Right.
I'll give you an example. In Pinterest, a lot of people were putting these filters over a photo with the premise or the theory that even though it's the same photo and the same words, title and description, that Pinterest would view it as a new fresh pin and thus give you a lot of traffic. And guess what? It worked. My warning to one of my students was hacks always work, but for a super short period of time.
Yeah.
And when you make them part of your process or your workflow for marketing, then you're thrown for a loop. And guess what? All of her numbers started steadily increasing. And I'm like, just keep an eye on them because when it doesn't work, it's going to, and it was drastic. It was a huge drop because Pinterest is smart. And the Pinterest algorithm and every algorithm out there is really smart. And they want more content. Some people say hacks. It could be a cheat code. It could
Yeah.
be whatever that lingo is. Be very leery. And if you're going to test it for a short period of time so that you can write down analytics at the beginning and at the end to make sure that what you're doing is A, replicable. So for me, so I can help my students with it, but also B, you're following kind of best practices on the platform. And that's kind of how I came to this new test that I've been doing.
I love that. Yeah, so before we get into your test, one last thing I want to mention. I think a lot of people want to see those short-term wins. And I think a lot of people struggle with like the long-term commitment of digital marketing, which is what this whole podcast is about, is like, this is a long-term commitment, people. Like, get on board. It's like going to the gym and being like, I want to lose weight today. It's not going to happen. Like any personal trainer is going to kind of say to you, look, like it's not healthy to lose weight that fast, or it's not healthy to like do a 40-minute workout, like 4-hour workout when you haven't worked out in, months. So it's the same thing. Now, does that mean like you're bound by, succeeding fast. No, like, and this is actually your experiment is curious. Again, I'm curious to hear what people think. Um, but there is this long-term thing required, and it's better to be slow and steady and consistent results versus like, yeah, like let suddenly skyrocketing and then going back down. And yeah, there are, people who go viral, and that's great too, but you are
So
thinking.
sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not. Going viral on Pinterest skews all of your marketing numbers,
Right.
so it's really hard analytic wise to know if, because then it feels like depressing
Right.
after that starts going down, because it always
Right.
will. So viral is not always the best thing to
Right.
do, by the way.
Right. Right. Okay, so let's talk about what you're doing this month, and people can get a sense for the premise of your
Yes.
experiment.
Yes, and we'll follow up after it's done with like the hard numbers. So I've got some numbers today, but we'll go over the hard numbers afterwards to see if there's something that you maybe want to try.
Right.
And I will say, when you're doing an experiment, using tools to help you with that is really, really smart. So I don't know when the episode will air and how long ago it was, but Cynthia talked to us about RecurPost in one of our episodes. And I had already had this experiment in mind, and I was like, hot damn, that's what I need. That's exactly what I need. So let me start from the beginning. I generally post maybe twice a week with a reel. I don't really post anything else but reels now. Sometimes I'll do carousels, because reels and carousels are the ones that get sort of the most engagement. And on Instagram, engagement is the deal, right? That's what you kind of want. And going into 2025, I really wanted more visibility. And I knew I was going to have to go through a little bit of pain to get that visibility, and I was ready to do that. So there's a lot of people out there. It was one of those people that I saw. I'm not going to say her name because I don't know if this experiment's going to work or not. And I don't think it's going to be I know it's not going to be a long-term thing. So that was also a premise of mine going forward. It was just sort of a big push
Mhm.
to kick off the year.
Yeah.
So I want to premise that as
Yeah.
well.
Which is
So I
better,
knew I wanted
right?
to
For an experiment. Like I think a lot of
yes.
people go in with their marketing, they're like, I'll do this forever. And again, that's not a long-term thing, right? So you need to think, how are you doing this week by week? How are you able to sustain this? And like maybe when you get off this experiment, you'll go to a whatever, you'll get inspired, but it won't be the same, right? So I think shorter experiments are
Yes.
better. So that's like actually a tip with experiments, really set
Yes.
the shorter, a week, or I'm sorry, not a week, like a month maybe to a quarter might is like a good time frame.
Something like that.
Depends on the
Yeah.
platform, right? But
Depends on the platform, and it also depends on
you,
you.
yeah.
My time is very limited, so I really committed to this. So anyway, there's a variety of people talking about this, and they're talking about reels, and they're talking about you want to show up more than you are,
Right.
which I thought was like once a day. I was wrong. Everywhere I looked, it said 3 to 5 reels a day, which in my mind, I'm thinking, no way. Um, and yet, with the tool of RecurPost that Cynthia told me about, it was sort of more doable. So I have already been creating these reels, so it's not like a new experiment.
Right.
But the focus is to do 5 to 7 second reel. Doesn't really even matter what the video is. That appealed to me a little bit, I'll say, because I didn't have to do any, writing of scripts and all the
Right.
things, right? And including music, including, captions and things, a hook on top of the video, so a text overlay. And I'm trying to think of what the sort of deliverables were. She said, a variety of people said, you want to do it for like 3 to 5 months,
Hmm.
which FYI, I may or may not be doing it. So I'll talk a little bit more
Right.
about that. But so I started creating these reels. This is something that I talk a lot with my students about, creating these 5 to 7 second reels of you doing like a video that you have of you doing whatever,
Right.
walking, working out, drinking coffee,
Yeah.
looking at the camera and smiling. Like, it doesn't literally doesn't matter. And so I created some of these, and I launched this on December 30th, 2024, and every single day, 5 videos. Now, I did miss last weekend. My mother-in-law broke her hip, so all heck is breaking loose. And so I think I only did 2 reels like over the last weekend. So it's been since the 30th. Today, when we're recording, it's January 15th. So I have not done a month yet. I've done a few weeks, I would say, and it's hard. I will also say that. But the premise of RecurPost is that you add these videos into this platform and it builds a library for you. But it not only builds a library, which was attractive to me because I want to reuse stuff. Like that's high on my list of things that I do for my business. But I also can do any platform. I started out doing Pinterest, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube shorts. Started off with all of those. What I found after a week or so was that it was ruining my Pinterest analytics. Standard pins for Pinterest are actually we just got this research from Tailwind, who's the largest third party and the first third party platform for posting to Pinterest. And FYI, he's going to be a speaker at Creative Marketing
Oh
Summit.
my
So if you want to
God.
learn
That's
more about the
amazing,
research
Jen.
on it, come. I know. Well, they're sponsoring us too, which is like anyway. So I stopped doing Pinterest because I already know what I do with
Right.
Pinterest works, so I'm not going to ruin it.
Right.
And I also found last week that it was skewing or messing up the numbers that I'm focusing on for my YouTube channel, which is my normal long form content, which is maybe 5 to 7 minutes. It's not really, and it's long, I guess. And so I stopped doing that also. Like I'm smart enough that I wrote down all the analytics for all of my accounts. I do it every month anyway, but like I specifically did for this research and I saw that it was not doing well. I was getting a bunch of impressions, but around here we know that impressions aren't everything
Right.
necessarily.
Right. Right.
And so I stopped doing those and I added Facebook because I figure it'll work on Facebook as well. Also, I think it's important to note that the focus for me was on high level visibility and on Instagram, reels are for new eyeballs, like to get new
Yes.
eyeballs in. Already my engagement has grown by 1,378%.
Whoa.
1,378%. I will say that the followers dipped at first and then it's now growing. And when you're in a research situation, don't do something else different.
Right.
And I did.
Oh no.
So that kind of messed
One
with it
experiment
because
at a time.
I know. Well, I went in and I started deleting people I was following that weren't following me,
Oh, okay.
that I didn't want to follow anymore.
Right.
So I do that all the time every
Right.
month. I clean up my Instagram account a lot.
Right.
That's how I found I can grow better
Right.
is by getting rid of the crap.
Right.
But then I did that in the middle of this experiment. So like I have a big huge drop of big huge drop. I think I lost 7
Right.
followers. For me, that was a big, huge drop. But the engagement is what I'm looking for. The other thing is prior to doing this experiment, I had about 60% of my followers watching the reel versus about 40% new eyeballs,
Mhm.
which on Instagram, you really, really want newer people
Right.
seeing those reels, right? And now I will say that it's 97% new eyeballs and
Wow.
3 to 5% my followers, which I'm okay with
Right.
because I don't need my actual followers who are either following for the education or
Yeah.
because they like me or are friends with me
Yeah.
or whatever. I don't need them to see all of those videos
Right.
every day because they already know the stuff,
Right, and
right?
we know that the weird thing with Instagram that changed a lot in the last few years is that no followers can convert, right? Because now you can remember this was different, right? So it was all about growing the followers, but now a non-follower can share your stuff, a non-follower can, opt in and they might save your post and come back to you and then follow you a lot later. So it really is about that impressions like that initial visibility, like views or whatever you want to call it, because you could have, like you said, just leads through a not, you could have many actually leads with non-followers, because people might not be ready to commit to having you in their feed, right? They just want to kind of get a taste, or just opt in and then just have you there, right? I don't know. Interesting how that's changed.
I also got, which is really important, folks, I got 2 Pinterest
That's
consultations.
amazing. That's what we really want to hear.
And
Yes.
wait, and and this has only been a couple weeks,
Right.
and those 2 people are not following me.
Right.
I just know
Exactly.
that that's how they found
That's
me
what I'm
because they
saying.
said, "I saw a reel on your Instagram
Right.
in the intake form."
Right.
2!
Right. That's what
Like,
I'm saying. Yeah, that's changed a lot. Like that, the platform has made some changes so that non-followers can immediately convert. And then like I've done it. Like I don't want to maybe follow someone, but I'll see something and I'll share their stuff or I'll
you'll
save
save
it.
it
Yeah.
or share it. Mhm.
Interesting.
Saves, shares, engagement, now followers at this point
Yeah.
today, all of my analytics are green. 200%, 500%. Like, it's kind of insane. I will include some of those screenshots in our next episode when
Yes.
we're talking about like the numbers. But I wanted to tell you, and if you want, go to Jen Vasquez Media, 2 Z's in the last name, and see the reels that I'm doing, or send me a DM and I'll give you more
Yeah,
information.
yeah.
But I will say it's hard. I complain about it every day, literally every day. But what I'm learning is I'm learning the hooks that work.
Yeah.
I'm learning the captions that work. At first, my captions were short and the hooks were really short. Those didn't resonate as much. So during the experiment, I changed up and made longer, more personal story type
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff. Those are like gangbusters. So
Yeah.
it's wild. And I will say, I have no clue what people want on Instagram because every time I make a reel, because I'm doing 5 of them a day, and by the way, I'm only doing this for a month,
Yes.
and then all of this content is going to just be
That's genius. Yeah, that's the beauty of
for
RecurPost. So yeah, RecurPost has that library that you can build for different you can slice it any way you want. You could have it per platform. I have it right now because I'm actually not doing it for Instagram, but I have it per type of content. So I have my podcast content, and then I've got like launch content. And so depending on what I'm promoting, I'll mix and match my libraries. But it's like you just set it and then forget it in a way. I mean, in your case, it's not
and
quite
you
forget
do
it, but
forget it.
well, you're
You do forget it because people say, "Oh my gosh, you're everywhere," and or you posted this last week, blah blah blah, and you're like, I don't know what that one was. I don't remember. It was,
yeah,
it's fun. It's
yeah.
really fun. So, the moral of this podcast is to experiment. You
Yes.
don't have to do something, and by the way, once this is done, I'm going to go down probably to 3, maybe 2 reels a day. I mean, if it
Yeah.
still works, I'll still
Yeah.
keep doing
And
it
you'll have
because
that library.
I'm not doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it
Yeah.
because it's an
So,
experiment, but it's also an exercise. So you're using it as an excuse to build up that library, and then it'll be easier. Like me too. I have over 200 episodes in my Recur post, and so I have to figure out how to get that into Instagram. But anyway, no problem.
oh, well, just add Instagram to RecurPost and start posting them.
Yeah, but
Done.
I think, yeah, I have to check. Maybe I have them more
Yeah.
kind of formatted for Facebook posts and LinkedIn. So I have to see how I
Yeah.
can like attach. But anyway, it's fine.
And I'm just doing LinkedIn as well. And I'm shocked that all of those numbers are growing too. And by the way, TikTok, sadly, has the most growth of any
Yeah,
platform, which
TikTok.
it may be leaving
Yeah.
at this point. I think they were talking about no one else can download it or something like that onto
Oh.
their app or their phone anymore.
Huh.
Like I think they're hopefully progressing it,
Mhm.
And I've had a ton of people on LinkedIn reaching out to me,
Mhm.
some sales as it happens in LinkedIn, but some people are like, I see you posting all this
Yeah.
stuff, like this is really fun. And of course, I'll create a YouTube video about it and like all the things. I experiment all the time. I get
Mhm.
bored, so I like to change things
Yeah.
up. So I don't really call it experimenting. I don't know. I just try new things. But this is a full, true like experiment because I want to be able to help my students. Their biggest complaint is they don't have time to show up. And this would solve that problem for them.
I think that's like one of the connections you and me have with this podcast too, because we've told people from the beginning, we're both super busy, but we're super committed. And so we are figuring
Yes.
it out. Like, this is the podcast. If you're figuring it out, how to, grow with less time and be smart, like that's what we're doing for you here. We're not about doing it like all the things. It's like, what are the little things that you can do that are sustainable that will help you grow your business, right? Because we're moms, we're grandmas, like we just don't have that time that, I don't know, some other people do, I guess. Yeah, and we were talking, I was also saying to Jen, and I think this is really big, like if you're a service based business or a product based business, you have to remember you're different than an influencer, right? So influencers are online to, like, they spend all day recording content. We don't do that, right? So we're serving our clients, we're getting on, client calls and stuff like that, or we're working with our team. And so, like Jen said, like just recording yourself in the middle of your life, kind of like an influencer, but it's different, right? So you have to find that way to make it easy for you to record and create content.
Yeah, and I knew going into this experiment because if it worked, I wanted to keep doing
Right,
it. Like, right? Like
right,
if you find something that works, you're
right,
going to keep doing it. But I knew the way that I normally would post reels, I would post them directly to Instagram
right,
and then I would post them directly to
right,
TikTok and then I'd post and then sometimes I'll miss platforms because I like have to go and do something
right,
else. I already knew that I needed help. And of course, you talking about RecurPost made it work for me.
yes,
So I knew if it was going to work, I needed a system. So I created when I was doing all the analytics, I created a system on how I was going to do this so that when I started on the 30th, I have a system in place. I've got time blocked on my calendar. I'm ready
right,
for whatever.
right,
And that way, and again, because it creates a library of content, not just the videos, right? But I could put other content in
right.
there. It creates a library of it.
Yeah.
So now I'll be adding my reels for my podcast, for Marketing Strategy Academy, for our podcast
Yes.
here, for like, I know that I can just add all
Everything.
of that in there.
Yeah, it's a game changer because, again, we have to pull the numbers, but like, what is it? Like 1% of your followers actually see your posts.
1%.
And so if you think about it, it's like you might feel like you're really beating the stick on the same content, and people are hardly even seeing it. Hardly even seeing it. And so I love this idea of 5 posts a day, 5 reels a day. And then, yeah, like I'm telling you, on LinkedIn, people are like, wow, you have so many, you're so active. And I'm like, that was a podcast episode I recorded 4 years ago, and it's still really good. And
And you're using it as marketing,
yes,
right? You're using it as marketing and you have all this content.
yeah,
So it should be reposting
yes.
multiple
Why
times.
wouldn't
We
it?
talk about
Yeah,
this a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And of course, I could go back and maybe freshen up some of the graphics, and like some of those things are, not super on brand, but that's okay. Like I think RecurPost is a game changer. It really does change like how you see it. And you're like, oh, I'm gaming. Like this is the smart way to do social media.
I'm gaming the
I'm
system
gaming the
in
system.
a way that doesn't upset the platforms,
Right,
right?
right,
It's not a hack.
right.
It's just a workflow
Yeah,
that allows us to work smarter, not harder,
yeah.
which is the whole premise of this podcast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I love it. Oh my God. I'm so excited. So, yeah, stay tuned because Jen's going to be sharing. I mean, this experiment is going very well, even though it's been 2 weeks.
We'll see. Yeah, like, and by the way, day 2 I wanted to quit.
Of
So
course.
let's talk a little bit about briefly about when you do an experiment, you will not want to do it.
Yes.
Like it's new,
It's
right? It's
new.
a new way of
Yeah.
doing things if it's an experiment. I wanted to quit on day 2, probably day 5, probably like 18 million times. And so I have a friend, she and I are the ones that are doing this experiment. She's doing it with her account, I'm doing it with my
Get a
account.
buddy. There you
And
go.
yeah, and the glory of it is when I wanted to quit, and probably would have if I'm being really honest. She was like, "Oh no, you committed to me." And then she wanted to quit multiple times and I'm like, "Oh no, you committed to me."
You know
So
what you
we were
guys
going to
should do? Like if someone
what?
skips a day, it should impact the other person. So if
Yeah.
you don't post, she should
I'll
have
send
to
her 2 books
yeah,
if I don't
no, or she has
post.
to post double or something like that. So it's
Yeah.
like you cannot quit on me because I have to do 8 instead or 10 instead of 5 or something. It would be great if there was some
Yes.
like punishment or whatever punishment, yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah, and she took the experiment a little farther
Oh,
and opened a new account to
okay.
see if this would help grow a new account.
Okay.
Shoot, it's painful, a new account. Just FYI, a lot of Instagram people who have a lot of followers say, just start a new account. It's not worth trying to fix your old one. I would
Ah,
tend to disagree
I don't
because
yeah.
not only is it harder to grow, but it's a hit to your ego.
Yeah, no,
You
I
know,
wouldn't
she gets, 1,000 views on a reel and she's like, "Oh my gosh, 10 people saw it." Like
yeah.
it's not easy.
No, do not I feel like I don't understand those people, and I'm curious, maybe you don't agree with this, but I would never delete any content. Like, people who go back and delete
Mm-mm.
stuff, like, I
No.
don't care how bad it is, like, all that builds momentum. Like, why would you delete it? Never delete, like, even if it's something that did badly or I mean, the worst is when it does well and you delete it. Like, even if you're switching, you're pivoting, keep all your keep everything because that builds momentum on these platforms.
You're deleting all of the analytics that has.
I don't
Why
get it.
delete it?
Yeah, I don't
I
get it.
know. Yeah, and you should not be deleting on it on Pinterest either. The only reason why you should delete on Pinterest is if the link doesn't work anymore
Yeah.
and there's no other way for you to forward a link or
Yeah.
figure it out on the back end. Delete that link because
Yeah.
that will hurt you. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I am in total agreement with you.
Yeah. It's interesting. Anyway, yeah, I'm
So
curious.
we'll see how it
Yeah,
goes.
yeah, we're gonna check in with you in a few weeks and we'll look through the
It's hard.
analytics together and yeah, and then I will be doing an
Yeah.
experiment. I have to figure out what I have to do now because your experiment is pretty hardcore. I have to think about what I'm gonna commit
Yeah.
to. I mean, I'm gonna see if I can commit to an SEO experiment because I think that would be fun. But anyway,
Yeah, and it would be good for your business too, right? Like
absolutely.
you want to make sure that this experiment isn't just satisfying a curiosity. Maybe you want to make sure it's something that's going to actually help your business.
Yeah.
This is going to give me content for days,
Yeah.
A. It's going to give me knowledge of what content resonates the best
Yeah.
with my brand. It's going to give me probably knowledge that I don't want to post 5 times a day manually. Like, right, there's a lot that it's gonna give.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. So I'll be coming back at the probably the beginning of well, I don't know what these episodes like timing wise, but
Mhm.
I'm gonna give it a month and
Mhm.
then I'm gonna come back and kind of tell you how it went and if I'm continuing or not. So we'll
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes. And then next we'll have Cynthia
Yes.
be doing it.
The suspense
And
is intense.
yeah.
We're striving to bring to you. I mean, that was the also an inspiration behind this podcast because I felt like a lot of small businesses don't know how to keep up with some marketing news. So every month we have just highlights and what to do with that information as well. Because I think a lot of people I mean, there's been a lot of platforms that have come and gone. I mean, the one that I can think of the most was the one that where you went live. It was great. What was
Periscope.
Oh, I loved Periscope.
Periscope. But another one
Oh.
that you're talking about was
Yeah, the one that was
before
it
2020.
was
It
talking
was
the talking one without just like a
yeah.
I wasn't in too
Oh,
love with that one, to be honest.
you're talking about Clubhouse.
Clubhouse too, yeah.
Yeah, Clubhouse is still in existence though, and you can still go on there and stuff. It really helped grow my business at the
Yeah,
time
I
because it
loved
was new and
yeah.
everyone was jumping on it.
Maybe yeah, I'd love to talk about that on the next episode, like how to take advantage of these like trends and also protect your business. And I guess the biggest thing is don't put everything on one platform. That's why like that's like
Yeah, bottom line of this podcast, don't just have one platform. Period.
because there's people who are like, yeah, just do an Instagram account. And like, yes, Instagram's very stable today, but don't do just Instagram. Please at least have a website or a Pinterest or something, anything, a podcast. There's a
Goodness.
million options.
Yeah, at a minimum have a website and a
Yes.
blog, folks.
Yes.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's is important. That's the hill we'll die on this
Yes,
podcast.
absolutely.
Have a website and a blog post, no matter what content you create, because it is really
Yes.
important to
Yes,
getting seen.
yes, yes. I think that's what's gonna
Awesome.
be my experiment. I might do daily blogging for a month. I don't know. We'll see. I have to get back to you, but I could do that because I've got some new anyway, I have some updates, but I've been learning a lot more about AI and I'm learning how to create your own AI. And that way, blogging is much more sustainable. So, sneak peek. That might
We
be my
we have to have a whole AI episode as well. We've been
yes.
talking about it, but every time we're saying, "Oh, we're trying something new right now in AI, let's put it off a little bit." And now it's been put off for the last 2 months because we're still learning and looking at new things.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that's a
love
whole
it.
other thing. Yeah. All right. That's a whole other
All right,
podcast.
have a great day.
Thanks,
Bye,
Jen.
guys.
Bye.